Welcome to Blueprint of a Craft. I'm ideator and host Alissa Johnston. This is a space to center on the personal human connection as the main starting ingredient. We invite others to share what they feel their current craft in life is outside of their job title. Here, we identify craft as the value or impact you're trying to provide in life. In a playful, in-depth discussion, we pick apart the early sparks, the current framework, with all its messy parts and change pivots, and the future vision of this craft, ultimately creating a personal, usable blueprint. If you are a visionary, entrepreneur, leader of teams, community builder, or simply someone who wants to lead their life, this show is for you. Let's get to the day's blueprint. Hello, welcome to Blueprint of a Craft. I'm Alissa Johnston, leadership coach and learning and development strategist of over a decade. In this chat, you'll meet my past improv friend of over 10 years, Derick Santiago, or known in the more visible space, MocktailWiz. He has numerous accomplishments and has managed to turn his current craft into a prosperous business outside of his day job. But what you should know now is he loves cats, a no-brainer. Between logic and intuition, he chooses logic without hesitation. And the foundation of all that he does is because of his core, family. We'll challenge how there's numerous methods outside of numbers to measure success. And even if you are successful in your current life craft, there's still a high chance you may want to pivot. Let's get into his personal blueprint. Hello. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. And I think you and I have known each other almost, 2017.
2017. So it's like nine years now. Congratulations on your new podcast. And I so appreciate that you have me on here to talk about my craft. So thank you.
You were one of the first people I had thought of when I'm thinking about some of the core principles of this show: creativity, deep conversation, self-awareness. And I've seen you jump into a lot of these principles or projects over the close to a decade I've known you. So I'm super excited to talk to you about what your craft in life is. I think you gave me some juicy tidbits before that you might be at a pivoting point. So we'll kind of explore what that looks like. What I wanted to do was really make sure people know the human side of those who come on this episode. We're going to start off with a series of questions so we can understand some of the true Derick's behind the scenes.
Okay.
Are you ready to roll?
I'm nervous.
Why are you likable?
I hope I am likable, but I would think that because I'm a nice person, I usually am a very positive person and I don't like conflict. And so I keep it light and positive, but also genuine. I kind of dislike fake niceness. And so I think I just want to be a nice person in general. So hopefully people like that.
So positive and authentic. Then if we're going from the likable to the flip side, why are you unlikable?
When I believe in something, I strongly believe in that. And so I would defend that. I also am very protective of my friends and family. So don't cross me there. Just kidding. But I really am protective of my loved ones. And so I think I am unlikable if you're getting in trouble with any of my loved one. I'm from a province in the Philippines known for bravery. I feel like I just have that DNA in me.
Wow. That's a double-edged side there. I'll draw the swords if I need to if you get on their bad side.
Yep.
I count that as a good thing.
Our province is not known for the land of the heroes for nothing.
Land of the heroes and the brave. If you were to come back as an animal, which animal would you be?
Well, so see, first thing that came to mind was a tiger. I don't know why, but the second thing that came to mind is an animal with wings so that I can fly, because I just feel like that's freedom and a cool thing. So I would say a bird, maybe a colorful one. That's not loud, so not a parrot, but like a colorful bird that can fly.
And I mean, I'm all about color, so I hope you would come and perch on my window one day. At what age did you first realize you were different?
I am different. Ooh, at a very young age, I knew I was different because I like arts, but I'm colorblind. And I learned that very early on. I was young and I was doing my drawings and my mother told me that, hey, why are you coloring your people drawings blue? And I didn't know. And so I feel like in terms of being different, that's the first thing that came to mind is I do like art, I paint, I do all my videos, but a disability is that I'm actually colorblind. It's kind of difficult, and you can look at it in two ways. That could be like a hindrance or like a cool thing because I'm able to do all these artsy things. So, yeah, I learned at a very young age. I would say maybe 8 years old that my eyes are not normal.
Oh, I appreciate that because it shows that you can still drive towards something if you have that determination, even if it's not the easiest thing and you have a pretty clear potential obstacle in your pathway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did you
100%.
keep going? That was it internal drive? Was it you just got enjoyment out of it?
Yeah. I just like drawing as a kid. My mom also liked drawing. My early expression of art is really just drawing and illustrations because my mother also did a great job with her sketches, and seeing her and her output when I was a kid, I mimicked that and I enjoyed doing it.
Do you believe in aliens?
Yes, I would say yes, because it's such a big universe. It's impossible that we're the only beings in this world. I don't know if they're here with us, but I do believe in aliens because it would be very selfish of us to think that we're the only ones here.
It goes back to your positivity and wanting to give to others.
Let's give them their space. It's a big universe out there.
Cats or dogs?
Cats. That was a quick answer. I have 2 cats. One is sleeping right next to me, George, my black cat, and I have Maggie, our Maine Coon, downstairs waiting for me to feed her.
Intuition or logic?
Logic. I'm also a programmer. I took up computer science and we were trained to be programmers, and logic is a big thing. We had a bunch of maths in college. Like all the years, I think we had one math subject, and that's all logic.
What did you do to play this week?
Designed coasters for this new brand that I'm kind of picking up again, which we'll talk about later. But I was chatting with a friend and she has a laser that can carve things in wood, and she was asking for a design that she can practice with. And I created a coaster design for this brand that I'm going to be relaunching soon.
Now that we got a little bit out of Derick, we're going to get into the key question of the day. What is your current craft in life?
Normally, what I would say is mocktails, but you actually caught me in a transition period in terms of kind of refocusing some of my energy into the current interests that I have. So I would say still content creation is the craft, but the topics are shifting a little bit. But I'm known to be one thing, but I'm opening up to this other thing very, very soon.
If we're going to focus on what has been your craft for a while, which you mentioned was content creation, where did that all start? What was the spark of this pathway?
Actually, I just celebrated 4 years of doing that last month. So I am also known as MocktailWiz on Instagram, and I've been creating mocktail recipe videos for the past 4 years now. If you can imagine that, it feels like it's just yesterday when I started. But what sparked that was I stopped drinking alcohol 4 years ago. But when I do my meal prepping for everyday food, I usually drink something, usually alcohol. When I do that on the weekend, that's just how I relax and calm down. But when I decided to stop drinking alcohol, I still needed something to drink. So that's when I made my first mocktail with ingredients that are available at my house at that time. I also have background on mixology, and so I've been doing mixology with alcohol even before that. When I stopped drinking, kind of used that skill to how can I make cocktails without alcohol but they still taste good. That's when the mocktail interest started, and then about a month after that, I started posting it on Instagram. It got attention. It landed me with 2 book deals. I have a first book, The Mocktail Club, that came out in January 2024. And then a second recipe deck called Make It a Mocktail that came out July of 2024. In the last 4 years, I would say that outside of work, I've been doing mocktails. And with that, I get to meet new people. I get to work with national brands. It's been a lot of fun.
I am interested in exploring how there's a connection between your career, which I know you work within more of the IT technical realm, and content creation, which is a whole new world, I feel like. Two very
Yeah.
different realms.
Yeah.
Do you see there being any kind of connection between the two and how one helps the other, or are there any similarities between the two?
I think there's like two sides to it. If you're just doing content creation as an outlet for creativity, it's nice to have that on top of your day job, because then day job's very rigid. You're working on one thing. So in my case, I am a project manager for Salesforce application implementations. I would say there's room for creativity, but not that much. If you're just doing content creation as an outlet for creativity, it's a good thing to have on top of your day job. But if you treat content creation, it for me personally it became a business. It became a side hustle where after a few months I started working with different brands. And I think the consulting knowledge and experience came in very handy when I started working with brands, because then you're dealing with contracts, you're dealing with deliverables, and you're dealing with timelines, and also in general just communication. Because I'm a consultant, I've been in the corporate world. I feel like communication is much better and clearer and more professional because I have had this experience from the corporate world when dealing with big companies. And I've worked with national brands like Ninja Kitchen, even Farmer John, who makes bacon, and other companies. It's good to have the skills from my corporate job, and it was very handy when I started treating MocktailWiz as a business.
I like that you're saying there can be a very clear structure behind content creation and making it a solid, successful business, and that you really leaned upon your past skill sets and what you've had as your career for a number of years. So there's a clear connection that you can pull from both sides of the coin.
Sure.
I'm curious, understanding some of the motions of our motivations, what triggers us to start something. And when I was reading your Mocktail book, in the beginning of the book, it said, "To my mother, whose love for all things culinary inspired my love for mixology."
Yeah.
Can you touch on that and how that might have led to this journey?
Oh my gosh. You're going to make me cry. So I lost my mother in 2020, and that's in part where the alcohol consumption came into the picture, because I think alcohol was the tool that was available to me at the time to deal with grief. And so I feel like my mocktails are directly connected to my mother because for two reasons. One, it was kind of what led me to stopping drinking. The grief was the one that led me to drinking, and eventually stopping drinking and working on mocktails. And that grief is rooted in my love for my mother. And my mother's just been so creative. Just growing up, she actually didn't cook much for when I was younger, but when I was a little older, that's when she really opened up and really leaned into cooking. She was very exploratory when it comes to flavors. She got into Thai food, and next thing you know, she's making chili garlic oil, and she sees something, she tries to create that, and researching and developing flavors. We also had a cupcake business briefly, where by business I mean like I would take orders from my coworkers. My mom would make the cupcakes and then I would bring it, but I would just give her like, "Mom, I want some like a s'mores flavored cupcake," and she would do it. And she's just creative in that way. Ask her whatever dish you want cooked and she would just do it. I grew up around that and seeing her in the kitchen. So I feel like I got her palate, I would say. I also like cooking, and I feel like mixology is basically cooking with, without fire, but it's basically like combination of flavors to come up with something delicious. I feel like I got that from my mother. That's why when I had the opportunity to write the book, I dedicated it to her because she was very into cookbooks, and who knew that a couple years after she had passed that you'll find my own book in the cookbook section of bookstores like Barnes and Nobles. It's like a neat way to tie it all together. It always comes back to my mother being the inspiration for all of that.
And that's something that you start from the ground up, watching someone, seeing what they do, seeing how they figure things out without necessarily going and having an instructor telling them what to do. How did that play into the process of you as you were creating your MocktailWiz brand?
I feel like there's a gift there somewhere that my mom had, and I feel like I got that from her. When I started MocktailWiz, I did take up a mixology class way before I even stopped drinking. I have the background knowledge on how to construct a well-balanced drink even before MocktailWiz. And then at that moment, I don't know what happens when you stop drinking, but I feel like all the fog in my head disappeared and things were clear, and I just had a lot of ideas for recipes to the point that I couldn't sleep. I tell this in some of the interviews that I've done before that sometimes I would be in my corporate job and in the middle of a meeting and would have a thought like, oh, strawberry and guava, I think that will look good. That will taste good together. And I would write that down. It's just so random when you get these ideas. But what I learned from my mother is to act on it. If you have an idea, it's not going to happen if you just keep that as an idea in your notes. You have to act on it. I've been very fortunate to be able to actually act on things because I have the resources here. Whereas my mother, when we were younger, we didn't have a lot of the resources available to us in the Philippines, in my tiny little province. I remember I would be browsing her cookbooks and would ask for things, but would look at the ingredients and, oh, we don't have that. We don't have that. So my mom would have to find a way to still make the recipes without those ingredients by finding alternatives, which now that I talk about it is kind of like the main thing about MocktailWiz is it's like creating mocktails without the alcohol. So what alternatives can I put into my drink that can make it as delicious as an alcoholic drink? There.
I'm a big believer in how there's one thing that gives you that aha moment that you never even thought. That was the trek. That was the trek to get you there. But honestly, everything is built. When you think of a blueprint, there's one pillar, one pillar, one pillar, one pillar. And sometimes we don't recognize when that one pillar was laid. It helped to make the whole thing seamless at the end of it. So that's a cool connection. What were some of those challenges or maybe failure moments you experienced during this 4-year trek?
So challenges would be, number one, perception from the non-sober people. My account is very much open about my sobriety. I think the main challenge with mocktails is the perception from people outside of the sobriety circle, because they would just say, what's the point? Why would you drink something like that without the alcohol? That's just sugar. Or you see all these things coming from people who don't understand it. To me, if the thing that you're looking at is not making sense for you, then you're probably not the target audience. You're not who I'm creating for. I'm creating for people who stop drinking because they don't want to drink anymore, but want to still have something fun to drink, something beautiful to drink. Early on, a lot of the challenges were my content is shown to people in sober, curious, and sobriety-centric spaces. To them, I didn't have to explain anything. They get it. But sometimes a post would go to a wider audience and then it kind of lands on the non-sober side of things. And like people are like, what's the point of this? That's a challenge. I don't engage with that type of conversation. If it doesn't make sense to you, then you're probably not the target audience, right? From a challenge of MocktailWiz perspective, I think that was one of the big ones.
That's coming from your business side where you've had the experience to know, be very clear on who your persona is you're targeting.
Yep.
If you're outside of that persona, you're going to have to battle commentary that's not conducive to what you're actually trying to produce and who you're trying to target and produce to. And then the second thing is maybe you're casting your net too wide and you're expending resources where it doesn't need to be expended that way. Do I have to maybe go back and kind of tweak some of these things I'm doing on the back end?
And the algorithm on Instagram is very unpredictable. Sometimes the silliest thing that you didn't take a lot of time to do is the one that suddenly goes viral and goes on the other side of the non-sober world. And then somehow it landed on these people. I'm clear on who I'm targeting. I don't even respond to the comments because I don't want to spend my energy there. I'd rather respond to the people who are my target audience. So having haters on your video is a sign that, okay, so this is being shown to other people. I think that's one of the main challenges of the Mocktail account in general. I think from a creative perspective, the challenge is when you start looking at the numbers and you let your decisions be driven by the numbers, because again, that's not your target audience. The numbers is not what makes you do this. When I started the account, my goal was to share recipes. That's it. I wasn't looking for sponsorships. I do have a day job, and that's a luxury that I have, right? Because I'm doing this for fun. I don't need to do this to earn money to sustain my lifestyle. It's just a bonus, all these partnerships and sponsorships. But it's a trap, right? Because the social media is very into numbers, following the number of your following, views on your videos. And once you focus on that, it would just be downhill because you cannot explain the algorithm. It does what it does. There's nothing, I don't know that you can do anything to change the number of views on your video, especially if your videos are like mine that are just recipes. How else can you make the video different to fit different styles? But what I did was I just focused on the quality of the work that I'm doing. I started with using just my iPhone to film these videos, but then I actually like cameras a lot. I picked up my Micro Four Thirds camera again. It wasn't meant to be used for videos, but I used it anyway. And then just focused on not the views, but the quality of the video, the quality of the recipes that I'm sharing. And even though my videos were not being shown to a lot of people, I feel like because of the quality of the videos that I make, the right people were seeing it, and that's how I get my business. I don't reach out to brands. They kind of just find me somehow. They see the quality of the work and they ask to work with me. I'm just human, and they're like, I worked so hard for that video. Why is it 400 views? I still feel upset sometimes when that happens, but I have to remind myself that, hey, that's not why you're doing this. I just need to go back to why are you doing this? And then because I feel like if you do it long enough, you get distracted with all these metrics. It's very easy to compare online. Like, why is this other video getting this much views? That can be a slippery slope. I would say that's a challenge that I had to overcome over and over again, because you cannot help but do that because the platform itself encourages that. So it's very hard to be grounded, I would say.
I like that you're talking about, number one, know your why of why you're doing this. What is that energizer, that internal motivation? In this case, it's quality and that you enjoy making these beverages and being creative in the process. And the second thing is maybe what you need to be looking at and what you're measuring is the qualitative side of things. Boom. That's my metric to say I'm being successful. I got different partnerships that came to me over the past 2 months and I didn't have to do any outreach. Boom. That's a success metric for me right there.
I'd like to emphasize that because especially for smaller creators, when I'm still a small creator, I don't have a big following compared to others in this space. I think it's a disservice to your art and to your output to be measuring your worth based on the numbers. To give you an example, I was discovered by the publisher when I had less than 1,000 followers. My views were not a lot, and this publisher found me and asked me to write this book, and the numbers doesn't make sense if you look at the numbers, right? It's hard to measure your worth. I struggled with this in the beginning, but like you said, it's like that's not how you measure success or your worth. I would say it worked for me, and my views and my following is not that big, and it gave me a lot of things I didn't even ask for. It led me to a lot of cool things. Just don't focus on that, I would say.
So you've done a lot of cool things with this. You're an author, you're a photographer, you've met various people, you've done bartending out there with your mocktails. There's a pivot here. Tell us about this pivot, what that looks like.
The other thing about doing mocktails is that people now know me as MocktailWiz, and people follow me because of my mocktail recipes and because of the book and because of, I don't know, my sober journey. People relate with that. But having an account in such a small niche is sometimes very limiting also, because I feel like I can't post anything else outside of mocktails. Maybe this comes with just my sobriety. I'm now 4 years alcohol free, and so my world doesn't revolve around mocktails that much anymore. I don't create a lot of videos about mocktails recently, to be honest, and that's kind of like limiting in terms of expression of art, because I do have a lot of other interests, but I feel like I can't express that with the audience that I built. It's not relevant to why they're might be following the account. That happens to me too. Sometimes I would follow a person because of the art, and then they would post a story about their personal life, and I'm like, who's this? And then, oh, that's the artist. With that, just to be honest, I feel like I haven't had the motivation to pick up the camera and create a new mocktail recipe in the last few months, and that could be for a number of reasons. I wanted to talk about this. There are different seasons in terms of creativity. My season with mocktail recipes is kind of changing. I'm not as excited about mocktails right now. I'm not saying that I won't be excited about it anymore forever, just as we speak right this minute. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I want to make a mocktail recipe. Not like when I was starting out, where I couldn't sleep because I just had so many recipes in mind. I was filming and editing and posting every single day, sometimes twice a day. I was in that zone. I'm not there anymore right now towards mocktails. I have a lot of other interests. For instance, with mocktails, I picked up an old hobby of photography and making videos. I've been very into cameras, and starting from my Micro Four Thirds camera, upgraded to APS-C format, and then upgraded to full frame format, playing with all these different lenses. That's a genuine interest of mine that I want to talk about. But if you're following MocktailWiz for the mocktails, they don't care about the camera that you're using. They care that the mocktails are beautiful on screen, right? But that's something that I want to talk about that I feel like I can't talk about with mocktails.
This is a way for you to really showcase, here's some of these other things that I can offer these various audiences.
I created a separate account called Derick the Wiz. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's my way of still connecting the Wiz that MocktailWiz still is, but focusing more on Derick as a person, because I have so much more that I'm interested in outside of mocktails that I want to talk about. It's called Derick the Wiz. I already posted a video in that account a year ago, which was still tied to MocktailWiz, but behind the scenes. How do I create a mocktail from ideation to tasting and testing to how do I set up my work? And a lot of people, mostly the other creators that follow me, were interested to see how I set up my lighting, mount, and the camera, and my editing, etc. Derick the Wiz is going to be more about general interests. I think the boundaries of just being focused on mocktails is removed because I can just post whatever I want. I'm going to be making all these videos for myself. I've been very curated for MocktailWiz, only mocktails and only sobriety. And so I've had guardrails. But I feel like with Derick the Wiz, it would just be whatever is of interest right now. For instance, we took a trip to Hawaii last year. I took a lot of videos for that. I'm going to edit that to say, hey, this is going to be a 5-day itinerary could look like in Oahu. We just got a new car, and I did a bunch of research about this. So we got the 2026 RAV4, which is like the hot thing right now. As I was researching it and looking at YouTube videos, car people talk about car things, and all I really want to hear is like, I want to hear what an owner would say about this car. How's the day-to-day driving and the features that you would use for when you're driving, and not like a highlight reels of horsepower or whatever that is. Like, I don't even care about that because I don't understand it. I just like to know, what's the tech look like? The moonroof, does it actually open? You know, I was looking for someone who would talk about this as an owner, and I didn't see that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make that video because there's an audience for that. I was an audience for that, and I didn't find it. Derick the Wiz will be just for myself for right now. If people find it helpful, that's great. But to me, I just want to start creating again because I feel like I haven't had the motivation to create in such a long time because I felt like I was limited by mocktails. Now I just want to create something and then we'll take it from there. That's how creativity is, I think. It just comes and goes. And when it comes, you better catch it.
I like how you were talking about the persona that you're really selling this value to now are the personas of yourself. I'm looking at the everyday car owner. That's me. I'm looking at the person who wants to know how to be creative with the equipment and the technical part. That's me. I'm looking at the person who likes the mocktail. That's me. I'm looking at the traveler.
Yeah.
That's me. So if I enjoy it, I'm going to find the people who have those similar personas out there that are going to gravitate similar to how they did with your mocktails and the partners that came to you. That's how I see this happening.
Yeah. And it kind of also brings me back to, just sharing something that you truly enjoy and then hoping other people would find it helpful because it was helpful to you. That was how MocktailWiz started. I was playing with mocktails. It was helpful to me at that time. So I started sharing it. And then eventually people found it and they found it helpful. And it became the account that it is. I just want to go back to that about something that I'm genuinely interested in and what I would think would be helpful to me as an audience and then share that and see if people find it. But that's the beauty of it is like, with this, I'm not boxed in. So I feel like if people find it, great. If they don't, that's fine, because I'm just wanting a creative outlet. I've been doing this content creation for 4 years now. I still have this tendency of how do I monetize this and how do I blah, blah, blah. And I need to constantly remind myself, just create and focus on the art. And then it will come if it will come. That's the goal for Derick the Wiz.
All right, Derick. Well, we went on quite the pivot journey today, understanding what your current craft in life is. What I want to do now is a quick breakdown of what I got from your current blueprint. Number one, your craft for the past 4 years had been producing mocktails for
mostly sober and sober curious people.
Second thing we really uncovered that spark behind this. You were at a pivotal point in your life where you got excited by this idea that came to you. You had your sleepless nights and you were inspired by memories of your mom and her creativity and her ability to grab these resources and create these amazing culinary concoctions. You really applied that to this new idea, this new venture that you had.
Perfect. Yep, exactly.
Okay, the middle ground, you had 4 years where you were focused on the quality of the mocktails. You didn't necessarily want to focus on the numbers, even though sometimes you did. How many views are being looked at? Who are the ones commenting on this? Being aware of what that persona is you're trying to cultivate for and ignoring those who didn't fit that persona because they're not your target audience anyway.
Correct. Yep, exactly.
Finally, we get to the pivotal point where you've had great successes. You had a book published, you had recipe cards, you had partnerships that you've been able to create recipes for others outside of yourself. And now you're in a pivotal season where you're like, I'm ready for change. Let's shift the gears from being so boundaried or boxed in. Let's punch our way out of this and start to create for these personas that I'm excited about. I mean, realistically, these are different Derricks that we're cultivating for that are out in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Because MocktailWiz has been successful, but it's just one part of myself. And I'm not going to abandon MocktailWiz. It gave me so much in the last 4 years. But I'm hoping that by picking up the other aspects of me and creating other types of things, that the excitement towards creating for MocktailWiz will come back and it will be in a better, more manageable phase. Not as hot as in the beginning, posting every day, and not as quiet like right now, posting every month. Hopefully, this new venture would get me back into enjoying creating in general, and that leads to managing these two sides in a more balanced way.
Wonderful. What would you hope people get from this new creation that you're putting out to the world? What is that value? What is that impact you're hoping to cultivate with this new trajectory?
Well, I first first word that came to mind was helpful. What I'm going to be making is something that I want to consume myself, because when researching for itineraries, for example, the Hawaii trip, that's why I'm creating it, because I think it would be helpful for me. So hopefully it will be helpful for others. I hope they enjoy it. We met at an improv class, so I feel like there's humor in this room. And so I would try to infuse some of that in the videos, and hopefully people enjoy it. And last word is inspire. Inspire to also create or take that travel and buy that ticket or to do something, because I feel like me as a person and as a creative person, I feel like I am happier when I'm creating compared to just consuming things. And so those are my 3 words.
Very well put. I personally am very excited to see the new things that you're going to be producing for us out there. I'll be one of the first ones on your bandwagon, so sign me up.
Thank you.
So let's get to blueprinting. Thank you, Derick.
Thank you.
Bye. And that is a wrap on today's blueprint. Derick gave us an incredible reminder that true success isn't measured by algorithms or view counts. It can be measured by the qualitative impact and the joy you get from creating. Here's your micro play for the week. I challenge you to launch, write, or build one thing purely for the fun of it. No follower goals, no metrics, just pure creative play. Then drop a comment below at Blueprint of a Craft to let me know what vanity-free project you're tackling. And don't forget, hit subscribe so you never miss a blueprint. Until next time, keep creating, keep pivoting, and own your craft.